Teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know whenever you hit the play button on this show, whatever the struggle is, whatever the challenge is, whatever the obstacle is, whatever it is you may be going through in your life right now, we are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. That has been the guarantee of this show since its inception about 5 years ago now from this specific recording. Today, I have the wonderful Brad Chandler. He describes himself as a happiness coach. Yeah, runs a business called Limitless You. And, just get ready for, as you guys have been prepped for this, the regular listener has been prepped for this. If you're new here, then just know this is how we get down here. But be ready for a story of, trauma, but learning how to overcome trauma and be able to really look at life from kind of that, really finding that silver lining. So, all that being said, Brad, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother.
Let's just jump right into it, man, because there's so much I want to get into with you in terms of how you think, your mindset, and all that. Because a lot of people can look at you from a surface level and say, "Man, successful flipping homes. He's got real estate money. He has, he just walks around with this positive energy that is just it exudes even in just throughout a screen or whenever you're talking." But you've expressed that growing up there was some trauma. There were some things that you had to go through as a young person that you had to overcome in order to get that success. So why don't we just kind of start there in terms of just your upbringing and kind of some of the things that you lived through as you grew up?
Yeah, let me touch on something before we go to my youth. What you
Sure.
just said is right. Like I do have good money and I do have this real estate company and people might look at me and be like, "Well, that's why he bounces around happy all the time. He plays 3 hours of pickleball a day. How can the guy not be happy?" But
Yes.
let's roll back 4 years ago. I
Mhm.
had all that stuff too, and I was a regular user of weed. I was a regular user of alcohol. I had my second marriage that didn't work out. I had two kids with behavioral problems. I had lost $9 million over 12 years making silly business mistakes. So yeah, you can look at me today and be like, well, how can he not be happy? But I wasn't 5 years ago. I had all of these issues in my life. So where did they all stem from? It's the same exact place that they stem from with you. No matter if you're struggling with addiction, depression, anxiety, you shut down when your spouse talks to you. You have business chaos. You can't get to the next level in your business. You make a bunch of money and then boom, you blow it and do something silly, right? It's all the same thing. It's this negative behavior is your mind's perceived solution to something that it thinks is worse. And when you figure out that thing that is your mind perceives as worse, it was nothing more than an untruth that was formed between the ages of birth and 10 years old to help you get through a stressful time when your needs weren't met or you had trauma or control was taken from you. So when you show your brain, Oswan,
Mhm.
that it's untrue, a mismatch detector literally goes ding 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 in your brain and you have the ability to rewrite the neural pathway that's holding that negative untruth. Guess what happens to the negative behavior? It goes away. So in my case, my father would hit me with a belt. My father would make fun of me. My parents fought all the time about money. There was a lot of chaos in my house. So, how did I internalize that as a kid? I, like most of us, turned it inward and said, "This must be my fault. Why would my dad hit me and make fun of me if there wasn't something wrong with me?" Because guess what? If I place the blame on him, I'm screwed, right? He's flawed, so I'm screwed. He's not going to be able to take care of me. No, my 6 million-year-old primitive brain said, I'm the bad one here. And if I can only be good, then dad will stop beating me and making fun of me and love me the way that I want. So that was my negative that was fueling all of the negative behavior that I mentioned earlier. And the untruth was I wasn't enough. I wasn't worthy of love. And when 3.5 years ago, trying to get my son help for anxiety, I realized doing some work on my own that, oh my God, it wasn't me that wasn't enough. It was how my father felt and how my mother felt. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, you're telling me I don't have to prove anything? I've spent 47 years trying to prove myself. And man, the weight got lifted. And that's when my life changed profoundly.
Now, when you're first of all, you're hitting on some really deep topics because, like you again, I grew up in a two-parent household with Caribbean parents, and it wasn't always easy. We'll just say it like that. It was not always easy. Incredibly stern people that at times I felt exactly like you felt in terms of some of their arguments, some of the things that they were going through as two adults. Sometimes I felt like being the youngest that it was my fault, and it really did tear me up. Now, luckily, I had the game of football, and I had a group of brothers, a group of teammates, a group of people that we can go out and we could work hard. And a lot of that stuff was kind of shielded. I didn't realize I was going through this trauma until the game of football ended for me, and I realized, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff that I still need to work on. And one of the things that comes up whenever I'm running into that situation is I say to myself, I try, and this is actually something that's recent because recently that I've recently started doing because of all the stuff I'm doing on now is I don't get that luxury of pointing the finger at somebody else and saying that's the reason I didn't make it. I don't get that luxury. I say that to myself all the time. Whenever there's something that's wrong, whenever I feel like there's somebody that's not doing what I want them to do, I say to myself, look, Aswan, you don't have that luxury. You don't have the ability to say, or that's not going to work for your personal standards. So when you're talking about overcoming the trauma, and you had mentioned, it took you 47 years, what advice do you give young people or give people to maybe catch it sooner? It's difficult to talk to a teenager about these things because they don't see life. But when you're encountering people that kind of have that victim mentality, how do you advise them to say, hey, let's not go down that road? Because going down the victim mentality, even in fact, if you are actually a victim, it never leads to what it is you want, which is prosperity, which is happiness, which is actually living a rewarding life. How do you kind of navigate that conversation?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Great question. So whether you're, 5 years old or 50 years old, all change begins with awareness. I didn't realize that I was in prison. I put myself in an invisible prison. If you want to escape from prison, what's the first thing you have to know? You've got to know that you're in prison, right?
Hmm.
So I created a 3-minute quiz that someone from seventh grade to 107 could take. And it's a self-love quiz. It will tell you your level of self-esteem. It will tell you how much are you holding on to the past, these hidden beliefs that are driving your behavior. Do yourself, your family, your business, your health a favor and go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz and take the quiz. And that's going to show your level of love. From there, you're going to have an awareness. If you talk negatively to yourself, if you do self-destructive behaviors, if you've been in shitty relationship after shitty relationship, if you get really angry with small things, if you take things personally, these are all signs that you lack self-love. You were not born with lack of self-love. It was a learned behavior, so you can unlearn it. So my advice is become aware, figure out what is the source of the issue, whether you have mental pain or physical pain. If you don't go to the source of the pain, it's a temporary fix and it's just going to keep coming back and back. That's why most therapy and most marriage counseling doesn't work, because they want to focus on the symptoms. Oh, you've got anxiety. Let's teach you some breathing. That shit doesn't work. You have got to get to the core. No one was born with anxiety. No one was born with depression. No one was born with addiction. Let's figure out when it started. And when it started is when you decide to start telling yourself a story like you and I did as kids.
Mhm.
Well, this must be happening because there's something wrong with me. Go back and figure that out and then say, was there anything wrong with you? And every time the answer is going to be no. We were all born in light and love. And at our core, at our essence, we are amazing people. Jeffrey Dahmer and Hitler weren't born Jeffrey Dahmer and Hitler. They had shit that happened to them. Does it make it right? No, it doesn't make it right. That's not my point. My point is that we're all born with free will and this amazing light and love, and shit happens to us, and that's what changes us. But we can get back to our essence with some work.
So becoming aware though, and then trying to apply it to businesses, because one of the things that I've found that's very difficult is trying to be in business and show up in business when you're still walking around with all of this shit on you, all this, all this trauma, all the things that you're going through. You go and try to build a business relationship. You go and try to have a transaction. You go and try to develop clients. It's on you. People ask, there's a reason in politics they're asking, who is this person dated? Who's this person married to? The whole person needs to show up. And I'm curious now in your life is when you decided that flipping houses was something that you were going to do, or when you got into business, how were you able to navigate, a lot of the things that you're dealing with on the inside, but be able to still develop as a businessman and make money and all that kind of stuff?
Well, all right, this is about to get, you were like, this is deep. This is about to get even deeper.
Right.
I have a theory in the last 6 months that I've come up with that um, our brains have been around for 6 million years. And of those 6 million years, we've only not lived in tribes like 2% of the time, 3%, a very small time. If you upset the tribe leader, you would get kicked out of the tribe. If you got kicked out of the tribe, what would happen to you?
I, I have no idea.
10,000 years ago, you get kicked out of the tribe and they say, get out of here. What's going to happen to you? What's your fate?
I think, yeah, it doesn't sound good. In
You're going
terms,
to die.
yeah,
You're,
basically, yeah,
you're, you're,
that's,
you're going to be dead.
yeah.
So when your wife talks to you and you shut down, when you come home and you drink 3 bottles of wine or whatever it is, that's your brain saying, if I don't do these things, I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe and die. So in my case, Oswan,
Mhm.
I was fighting for my life every day. My subconscious brain was saying, you're not enough. And the only way you can survive and be loved and stay in the tribe is if you make millions of dollars. So it was like I had to go make a bunch of money because that was my way out. That was what got it done for me. What I find is many entrepreneurs get into business for the same reason. If I can make 5 or 10 million dollars, I will be worthy and I will be loved. But here's the thing: if you don't feel enough today, and I put $10 million in your bank account, you may completely disagree with this, but I promise you I'm right. You're not going to feel enough. You're still get look at Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston and Prince and Matthew Perry and all the people who have taken their lives. So here's the secret: we can get you to that state. Like, our program is 5 weeks, and literally in 5 weeks, we can get you to that worthy self-love state that you think money's going to bring you, that it will never bring you. And once you get to that state, now your chances of making the $10 million goes up, because now you're doing your business through a sense of purpose and trying to make an impact, rather than what I did for 20 years, trying to make money to prove my worth. And I am living proof that in the last 3 years, as I focused on making an impact and not making money to prove my worth, my net worth has gone up higher than any other 3-year period before. So that's the answer. You've got to figure out what's driving you. What's your why behind it?
What are some examples in terms of your day to day in which you started to realize you are actually moving in a direction where you're chasing this impact versus chasing this dollar?
It
Because
happened.
that point, and I'll let you answer, but that point that you made, especially for you listeners, tune in very closely, because this is something that you just said can equal just as much money physically if you nail it the right way. But you got to nail it, and you got to focus on the impact element and have the faith that the money's going to come because of the impact that you're making. So go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So it happened overnight for me because my change was so profound. I went to a weekend in park. I was on a Zoom call and then trying to get my son help for anxiety. I didn't have a problem. So what
Right.
if I smoked weed every day? A lot of people smoke weed. So what if I drink? So what if my kids have behavioral problems? Whose doesn't? I just kind of like pushed everything aside. So in trying to get him help, I realized I had issues. I came home and my life so profoundly changed that I immediately said, oh my God, I don't need to make money anymore to prove myself. I need to make money. I want to make an impact. And I know if I focus on making an impact, the money will come. And the money did come. When I look back at I mean, I could write a book on this. Like, the mistakes that I made in business, I would open new markets. I would do development deals I had no idea doing. I wasn't ready to open new markets. I would hire people that I knew weren't a fit for the company, but I thought they could make me a bunch of money. And when I made that profound shift, literally in a couple of weeks, all of those mistakes and all of these chasing the shiny objects and the squirrels, squirrel here, squirrel there, it all went away. And
Yeah.
now my business isn't perfect. Whose business is perfect? But we don't have these crazy ups and downs and all this trouble. We were always in some, not lawsuit. We did get in a lawsuit that cost us almost $2 million, but just crazy shit. I was always trying to, I go to a mastermind. Well, Jimmy's smarter than I am. I come home and tell my wife, I'm an idiot. So let's go do this, and this. I was always comparing myself. I always had to do more because
Mhm.
I didn't feel enough. So when you can figure that out, and think about it from a sense of purpose. I did a real estate deal with a guy. It's still pending. A good friend of mine in Miami, and it was a partition lawsuit, so it's been tied up in the courts. But he sent me the paperwork. I didn't even read everything. You know why? Because I don't really like real estate. I did it for the money.
Mm.
Now I'm in the business of helping people transform their lives by overcoming hidden beliefs. And that's why God put me here. You see my bookshelf behind? It's loaded with books. I read constantly. I love it. So imagine waking up to a job that you absolutely love and that you can make an impact in. Do you think you're going to be better than the guy sitting next to you who's in the business to make a bunch of money? That guy's not going to come home and want to read books and talk to his spouse about the business for endless hours, but I do. Find something you love, focus on an impact, and I promise you the money will come like never before.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up parenting because that is a huge, huge thing over here in the Move Swiftly world. I myself, I teach, I work with a ton of parents. I spent a ton of time coaching. I do aspire to be a parent one day, and I thank the people like yourself that I've had the opportunity to connect with to know that it's no joke. It's like it's real life, and you can't just fuck around with it. You need to make sure you have your situation and your ducks in order before you do it. But as you're talking, can you share a little bit more about, when it comes to your son and how you were able to, because it sounds like he was the one that really got you to open up your eyes and realize, hey, I got to do something with this mindset. Can you speak a little bit about how that journey went in terms of, all right, this is what he's going through, and then you're saying, wait, anxiety, no one's born with it. Just kind of walk us through that journey a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm going to include my daughter in this too. I've been a single dad now for 13 years, and I believe that the
Woo.
greatest
Hey,
gift,
yeah, that one deserves a handshake, man.
thank
I
you.
mean, a hand clap.
Thank you.
That's not an easy job.
No, it was sudden, and when I found myself like 2 days after leaving my first wife, like brushing my daughter's hair, I was like, "Holy shit, this is real!"
Yeah.
Like I got to learn everything about taking care of a little 4-year-old girl. But man, it's been amazing. So I believe that the greatest gift that any parent can ever give a child is to break this multi-generational curse we're in. And if you haven't heard that, like, what's a curse? Like that sounds like woo-woo, but it's not. Because what happens is when you don't feel enough, you have your children, and you just pass it down. I was an amazing father. Never hit my kids. I was loving. I was affectionate. I did everything for them. I wasn't working 100 hours a week. I was getting them to school. I was cooking them dinner. I was getting them from the bus. I was traveling with my son around the country playing golf in his golf tournaments.
Yeah.
But yet my brokenness, my unwholeness caused them to have anxiety. So the greatest gift, back to the greatest gift, is to give the child, is to break the multi-generational curse. How do you do that? Well, you teach your child how to love themselves unconditionally. If you go and take the self-love quiz now and you score mild self-love or lack of self-love, how in the world can you teach your child how to love themselves unconditionally if you can't? You can't. Is it your fault? Nope. But now, after listening to this podcast, you have an awareness and you can go do something. So, my man, you go take the self love quiz and don't get married and don't have a child until you get to extreme self love and start to love yourself and be connected.
Yeah.
So, the journey with my kids has been profound. My daughter and I are in the best place we have ever been. She is just an absolute angel. She should be a senior in high school, but she's taken a college level course at community college. She's working 2 jobs. She's got, I gave her an old car she drives around. She's doing amazing. My
Mhm.
son, our relationship is good. He is still in the process and the journey of finding himself and figuring out who he is. So
Yeah.
some days, some months, he's great. He has no anxiety. Other months, he's in his, he's still on his journey. But what he doesn't have that most 22-year-olds have that are struggling is he's got all of the awareness.
Yeah.
Now he's got to go implement and put these things in place. Because most of us at 22, why am I drinking so much? Why am I smoking weed? Why do I go from one girlfriend to the next that keeps breaking up? I had no idea, but I've given him all the tools. And in the right time, it may be a month from now, a week from now, a year from now, he'll step into that power and he'll move forward.
Yes, and it's actually, man, it's so great when that happens. Actually, I'm a runner, man. So I run every single morning. This morning I was running at it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was in this neighborhood, and there was a pool guy there with his son cleaning out a pool in some apartment complex. And I thought, like, see, that's exactly what I would love. That's my aspiration to have my son out here waking up in the morning, doing blue collar work, doing exactly, just seeing and being aware of a lot of different things. And I want to give you the opportunity a little bit to talk a little bit more about this quiz because you've mentioned it quite a few times, and I can't wait to go and take it myself. What went into it? How'd you come up with it? What made it something that you obviously are really directing people towards?
what inspired me is that I was the guy that if we would have been on this podcast 5 years ago and you were interviewing as a real estate investor and you said, Brad, do you love yourself? I'd be like, of course I do. You'd
Mhm.
say, you'd ask me, Brad, do you have high self-esteem? Yeah, I really do. Do you care what other people think? I'd be like, no, I don't give a shit what other people think. But
Mhm.
guess what? All three of those would have been a lie, not consciously, but my conscious mind said all those things. In reality, when I look back, I did care what people thought. That's why when I went to a party or a social gathering at night that involved like mingling and dancing and talking to people, I would be smoking weed or having some drinks because I didn't feel comfortable. I was afraid of people judging me. It's why when I got up on stages to speak, I get really nervous. So it was a lie. So I built this quiz for the old Brad because I want you, if you're sitting here telling yourself the same lies, oh, I don't give a shit what people think. I love myself. I've got high self esteem. Really? Then go take the quiz and figure it out. Because if you were like me, you were hiding behind that. That was your survival mechanism. Now, I don't need drugs or weed or alcohol. And I really don't care what other people think because I now realize that when you judge another human being, you are usually projecting something inside yourself that isn't healed. Because if you were healed, you would never judge another human being. You never look at someone 100 pounds overweight and say they're fat and lazy. You would say, oh my gosh, they are using food as a coping mechanism. They must be really hurt from their childhood or something that happened in their life. So when you can shift from judgment to compassion, man, does it make life and compassion of yourself and others, it makes life so much more joyful.
So these were questions that you actually were going to be asking your former self. Like these were things
Yeah.
you actually said, hey, former Brad,
Yeah.
what you need to be asking yourself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Like it could literally, someone on this podcast is going to go take that quiz and their life is going to change in ways that they can't even imagine. Like I know there's people struggling right now. I know there's people suffering. And guess what? It's self-inflicted. It's self-inflicted from the untruths. I'm not a super religious guy. I'm very spiritual, but Jesus said a saying that I think is the best quote that he ever had. The truth shall set you free. For 47 years of my life, I lived with the untruth that I was not enough, and it drove absolute mayhem. And it affected my kids and my spouses and my business partner and my health, on and on and on and on. Now I live in the truth and I don't suffer anymore because when I get the negative feeling, I ask myself, what's driving this negative feeling? Oh, it's the feeling that I'm not enough. I ask myself, is that true? And I'm like, no, it's not true. So why am I going to sit here feeling sad, angry, or frustrated based on a thought that's not true? I say, okay, it's not true. And I go back to joy. So we created a tool that walks you exactly through that called the Joy Regenerator that you can get on our site. It's marvelous. If you do nothing else, take the quiz and go use the Joy Regenerator. Do those two things, and you're going to see your life slowly start to change.
But when it comes to developing clients and finding people that you want to work with, I know from experience that that's a difficult task because as transparent as you are with your story, as willing as you are to share about all the negative things that you've gone through in your past, it's that much more difficult to find people that need your help, need the work you do, and figure out a way in which they can trust you. So I'm saying all that to ask you, when it comes to clients and when it comes to the people that you work with, what's the criteria? What's the journey? What is the thing that you're able to take somebody on to the journey that you're able to take somebody on to go from point A to point B and say, this is how I'm serving you, this is how I'm helping you.
Yeah, so we always start out with the awareness, what's driving the behavior, and then we rewrite we literally help the person recode their brain using neuroplasticity, and then we allow them to rewrite their story. So in terms of trust, I've had a handful of the 100 clients say like, "Is this confidential?" And I always say, "Look, I've got Google My Business. I've got a Google review page. If you think that I'm going to come on and like share your secrets, do you think by now, after doing this for almost 3 years, that people wouldn't be like, hey, don't go to Brad because I've worked with a lot of close people that were in
Yeah,
my close circles,
yeah,
and I am is just like I'm an anti-therapist. I'm not a therapist, but
right.
I hold myself to the same standards as a doctor or a therapist in terms of like confidentiality. So it's there's nothing I haven't heard at this point,
Mhm.
and it doesn't do me any good to go share that with others. I just hold it in and have those conversations with the client. But it's a process. It's a 5 week process
Mhm.
where usually it's between the hours and 3 and 5, which is Ironically, it took me 3 hours laying on this bed in bedroom bed and Airbnb outside of Park City, Utah, where my life changed. And now with my clients, it's between 3 to 5 hours of working directly with me or working directly with Yvonne, my life partner, business partner, where people just have these dramatic shifts like, oh my God, I have suffered all this time for
Mhm.
the wrong reasons, being driven by these untruths.
Now, how did you go from real estate investor to doing that, to doing the self-development work?
I came back in that from that weekend and I looked around at the world and I looked at people in my community and my family and my business and I
So
thought about
it was a weekend, like a weekend
it was a
trip,
weekend. It was a
or
weekend, but the magic happened in 3 hours. And I looked around at all these communities, right? And I
Mhm.
started thinking about everyone that was suffering. And I was like, oh my gosh, Aswan, they're suffering for the same reason I was. So I started talking with them just informally about my story. And I
Right,
had so many people say the same thing like, I've never told anyone that, what I just told you. Or
right,
I've only told my husband that. No one else in the world knows this. And then
right.
they're like, wow, you're pretty good at this. You're
Mhm.
better than my therapist. And so I just started talking more. And then I'm like, you know what? I want to learn some more about this. And I started studying under some of the best people I think in the world. And
Mhm.
now I've built this program where I just took bits and pieces of some of the best programs in the world and I put them together. And it's a proven process. If you're ready for change, change usually happens through inspiration or desperation. I
Mhm.
hope that I can be the inspiration to you, whether it's me or not. It's not going to affect me at all if you work with me or don't work with me. But I want you to know that I walked in your shoes to some degree. We're all one. We all have pain and suffering from years ago. I've yet to meet anyone who doesn't. And I just want you to know that you can change and you can change faster than you think. And where you want to be, you're closer than you can ever imagine to where you want to be. It's just every problem in your life is a thinking problem.
Mhm.
Change your thinking, change your life. People have heard that before, but it's not as easy because most people really don't know how to change your thinking. We have created a process, a proven process using science and neuroplasticity and thousands of year old techniques to actually change the makeup of your brain so you stop thinking negatively, you stop believing these untruths, and that stops your negative behavior.
A closed mouth does not get fed. People understand what he said. He saw some things in his community. He got people to open up to him, start speaking, and he acted on that. He acted on what the people said. He acted on the response. And everyone, listen to every one of you listening to me have the ability to do that. If you're lost in life, whatever it is you're going through, if you have anything that you are feeling that you can't do, I don't want to hear it. All you have to do is simply open your mouth and understand what your strengths are, and then go apply it. And then the next point, I'd love, no, I'm going to be very respectful of your time because I know I could talk to you for hours. But the next point I'd love for you to kind of really dive into is the fact that you went and sought out coaching once you realized you had that skill, once you realized you had the ability to get people to open up and to talk more. Okay, let me go coach with some, let me get coached by people that have done it before. Can you speak on the importance of that a little bit?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I've always been a huge proponent of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I always give the analogy of like Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan. If they're the greatest ever, right? How did they become the greatest ever? One was hard work, but secondly, probably right behind that was coaching. You can't see what you can't see.
Right.
I didn't see any of this stuff. I just told you 5 minutes ago that if you'd asked me 5 years ago, did I love myself?
And that's
I was
not
like,
that
yeah,
long ago, folks. I'm just telling you.
yeah. So the you it's you can do this alone,
Hmm.
but it's really, really, really hard.
Hmm.
Again, I don't care if it's me or not. All I want to do is end your suffering. I want you to experience the freedom that I have now. I used to think money brought me freedom. The only things that truly bring you freedom are self-love and self-compassion. You can experience those as easily as myself or Aswan can experience them. So
Hmm.
just stop living under the lie that no matter what anyone told you about how bad you were, or you were going to amount to nothing, or you're a failure, that had nothing to do with you. That had to do with how they felt about themselves. So stop believing the untruths. There's nothing wrong with you. You are amazing. You are enough. Take the first step and see how amazing life can be.
All right. So when it comes to what's next, though, for your business, because there's so many angles and things that you can take because you have so much experience in business. what would you say is kind of the future? I know you mentioned you have a podcast now. How do you see this thing growing in the next 10, 15 years? And, what are you trying to put in place?
Yeah, how to be happier for entrepreneurs. We're now ranked in the top 2% after 100 episodes. So we must be
Yeah,
doing something.
yeah. Let's get
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. So if you like this stuff, go listen to the podcast. The future of the company, I want to help 1 million people literally crush these limiting beliefs that are causing the suffering in their lives. And so, I have aspirations of building an app for the 4 year the girl in India who has $4 to her name is about to take her life and can get on an app and change her life using AI. I want to start doing excursions. I'm a big boater. I want to spend a lot of time in the Caribbean. I want to fly couples down, 3 or 4 couples at a time, and do like a
I've been
transformation
telling,
with.
hey, well, I hate to, but as a South Florida resident, you need to let me know how to get involved with that specifically. I take cruises
Okay.
well, I was raised in
Yeah.
a household, so yeah, you need to let me know on that specifically.
Yeah, so we'll spend the first day, like Yvonne will work with the females, I'll work with the males, and then
Yeah.
we'll come back after they've gone through the transformation. Then we'll do the couples work. So just more of the same on a larger scale. We can do this all. A lot of people are like, oh, can you really do this virtually? Because we use hypnosis. And why do we use hypnosis? Because hypnosis, I think, is the best tool in the world to get to your subconscious mind. 95% of your daily behavior is driven by your subconscious mind. That's another reason that therapy and counseling's, couples coupling doesn't always work. It's
Yeah.
because they want to focus on the 5% of the conscious mind. We go deep and so it can be done over Zoom. So it's just
I've
slowly.
actually no, I see it because I actually paid for a therapist about a year and a half ago, and that was the issue. On one end we're doing Zoom, and then I'm like, look, there's a lot of shit I need to get off my chest. I'd rather be personable, and then all that kind of went away. So
And another,
you're right.
yeah, it can be done amazingly well. And the other thing is I've started to tip my toe into a couple of local companies that can use my expertise where I'm doing a joint venture agreement with them where I actually I help the principals on their mindset stuff and then I help them on the operation because I've scaled a business. So I don't know where all this is going to lead me. These two businesses may take off and be amazing. They may struggle and then I'm going to learn and I'm going to adapt. But what I know is that God put me here to do this work. I absolutely love it. It's when I get a text. I got a text 8 months ago that said, "Thank you for changing my life and my family's life." That was better than any $300,000 profit deal I ever made in real estate. Like it's just amazing the feeling I get knowing that I'm helping change in these people's lives.
And what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? Where do you normally
Yeah,
see?
unlocklimitlessyou.com/Brad has every piece of contact information, every social media platform, the self-love quiz. It even has my cell phone number. If you're listening to this and you're really suffering and you're like, I just need to talk to somebody and I resonate with Brad, literally pick up the phone right now and call my cell phone number and we'll have a chat. I'll try to help you out.
Mm. Yeah, and all of that will be included in the show notes as well. So, Brad, the final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. It is about, we'll say 6 years ago, you're off the liquor, you're off the weed, you're just in a mess, but you just closed the deal, but inside you truly, truly are hurting. I want you to pretend that that version of Brad has joined us in the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yeah. Everything that you're struggling with is not your fault. It's your brain's attempt at keeping you from something that it perceives as even worse. But Brad, that thing that you think is worse that's driving this negative behavior is nothing more than an untruth that was formed in childhood to protect you. So your brain is actually doing what it should be doing. But we have a better way. We can bring that little boy into your adult self and tell him that he no longer needs to worry about that other self, his younger self. So if you're suffering or struggling, things are about to change in a big way. I just need you to take the first step and believe that change can happen.
Amen to that. And for you first time listeners, I'll tell you the reason I close out with that question is because if you are that person, if you are specifically the person that is struggling with all of the things that I laid out, we're here to speak to you. We're here to tell you, don't let it take over you. There is a better way out. Just trust the process and understand you can just simply move forward. All right. All that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.